In the book, The Atheist Introduction to the New Testament, How the Bible Undermines the Basic Teachings of Christianity, author Mike Davis begins with these words on page 1. For me, Matthew 24:34 was the smoking gun. It proved to me that Christianity could not possibly be true. End of story, case closed. It's the verse where Jesus tells his listeners that the judgment day will come before the generation he's speaking to passes away, meaning that some of them would still be alive when the sun went dark, the stars fell from the sky, and Jesus came riding down from the heaven on clouds of glory. It's been nearly 2,000 years since that generation passed away, and the sun is still shining, the stars still twinkle in the sky, and clouds arrive with no passengers from heaven, glorious or otherwise. For me, this sealed the issue. Jesus was wrong. Therefore, he could not have been divine, but just a guy preaching what he believed in and no more deserving of our belief than any other guy. Is Mr. Davis correct? Did Jesus err when he predicted this generation, his generation, will by no means pass away till all these things take place? According to Davis, since Jesus tells his listeners that the judgment day will come before the generation he's speaking to passes away, and since that generation passed away 1,900 years ago, the Bible itself is untrustworthy, Jesus could not have been divine, and supposedly such verses should make people atheists rather than Christians. In actuality, what Davis confesses ultimately proved to him that the Bible and Jesus are unreliable is nothing more than a misinterpretation of Scripture. Jesus was not mistaken in his comments in Matthew 24:34. Jesus' generation did not pass away prior to witnessing the things Jesus foretold in Matthew 24, verses 4 through 34. But Jesus did not foretell in those verses what Davis assumes he foretold. Davis and many others believe that prior to verse 34, Jesus was describing events that would take place shortly before Judgment Day, at the end of time. In those verses, Jesus was actually prophesying about the coming destruction upon Jerusalem in AD 70, not the final judgment. When the disciples went to show Jesus the temple buildings in Matthew 24, verse 1, Jesus said in verse 2, "Do you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down." Later, when Jesus was on the Mount of Olives, the disciples asked him 3 questions, beginning with, "When will these things be?" In verses 4 through 34, Jesus revealed several signs that would indicate Rome's destruction of Jerusalem, including the temple, was near. But wait a minute, how can Matthew 24, verses 29 through 31, refer to the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70? The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven? How is that not describing the end of time? If we allow the Bible to explain itself, what we find is that Jesus used the same kind of highly figurative phrases, apocalyptic language, that was characteristic of some of the Old Testament prophets when they painted word pictures of the overthrow of various wicked earthly kingdoms. When the prophet Ezekiel portrayed the fate of the Egyptians, he wrote, "The word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation for Pharaoh king of Egypt, and say to him, When I put out your light, I will cover the heavens and make its stars dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. All bright lights of the heavens I will make dark over you, and bring darkness upon your land." In Isaiah's prophetic judgment against Egypt, he began by saying, "Behold, the Lord rides on a swift cloud, and will come into Egypt." In Isaiah 34, the prophet pronounced judgment on the people of Edom, saying, "All the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled up like a scroll. All their host shall fall down." Did this literally happen? No. This was and is figurative apocalyptic language. Last but not least, in Isaiah's prophecy against Babylon, he wrote that the day of the Lord is at hand. Behold, the day of the Lord comes. For the stars of heaven and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be darkened in its going forth, and the moon will not cause its light to shine. I will shake the heavens, and the earth will move out of her place. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them. As my colleague, Dr. Dave Miller, observed, there is no question that such language is highly figurative, hyperbolic, and designed to make an impression, to create an effect in the mind of the hearer, and not intended to be taken literally. If God can discuss the overthrow of Babylon, Egypt, and Edom in such extravagant, dramatic terminology, surely He can do the same when discussing the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. Friends, the Bible is its own best commentary. When we read something that we do not understand in one section of the Bible, frequently other passages in Scripture will interpret the unclear sections for us. In Matthew 24, verses 35 and 36, through chapter 25, verse 46, Jesus answered the disciples' last two questions from Matthew 24, verse 3. What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Jesus then told of His future return and final judgment of the world. But in Matthew chapter 24, verses 4 through 34, Jesus foretold of the coming destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. Sadly, many atheists and skeptics believe they have disproven the Bible and Christianity. The fact that Mike Davis highlights Matthew 24:34 as the verse that once and for all proved to him the Bible is unreliable should tell us something about the feebleness of the unbeliever's case against Christianity. To learn more about the reliability of the Bible, visit us at apologeticspress.org. and consider picking up copies of our 3-volume set, The Anvil Rings: Answers to Alleged Bible Discrepancies.